presentation. My name is Gemma.
Alex. Dominic. Jamie.
So, as a group, we have put together the results of research into mystery shopping and identified a specific business sector which would benefit from the mystery shopping experience. After thorough research of over 30 emails sent, we've compiled all the information we feel a mystery shopper would need within this presentation. I'd like to pass over to Alex now, where he'll go into mystery shopping.
Good morning. I'm going to start with a background. So as you can see, it began in the 1940s. That was through the company Wilmar. They were the first company to use mystery shopping, actually coined the phrase mystery shopping. And they used it as a way of evaluating customer services instead of just trying to catch out kind of crooked employees. It exploded during the 1970s and 80s in America, particularly because it's a kind of form of marketing for, and they also exploded then. And the introduction of the World Web in the 1990s allowed mystery shopping a whole new platform of communication to contact companies, as we did as well using email. So I think it made it a lot easier for mystery shopping to do that. Pass over to Dom.
Thank you. Good morning all. Okay, I'd like to first of all give you some information on the sector chosen and why. So as you can see, according to the Association of British Insurers, there's 23.8 million private vehicles insured in the UK and a fair number of commercial ones as well. It's very competitive. A lot of business is conducted on the basis of price competition alone. There's very little to differentiate between products really. So we'll come on to this in a little while. That's one of the reasons we looked at this, because customer service is very key in this marketplace because there's so many players offering very, very similar products. As mentioned here in some work conducted by Tom Peters. So as you can see, 13.3 billion paid out in premiums, 12.1 billion paid out to people for claims. So there's a considerable amount of money going out for damage there. So there's very little profit margins once again, so it's key to be a top player to have something that sets you apart from the competition. So now 68% of customers have only been with their current provider for less than 3 years, another indication of the kind of marketplace, high turnover, very little loyalty. There's very definitely a need there to hook customers, consumers in and keep the business there. McKinsey, a report news by McKinsey highlights there's a growing disconnect between marketing expenditure and the realities of consumer behaviour. This is backed up by some work conducted by Colin Shaw for the BBC, who himself was a mystery shopper, and found out that too many executives looked at the customers as if they were just transactions, and little thought was given to customer experience, and little trust was shown in the customer as well. Now we just have some details here on the insurance types purchased in the UK. So you can see with the motor insurance here, average premium £500, over 70% of households have motor insurance. Clearly it's something that most people can't do without a good business to be in if you can make your product better than the rest, or indeed make your service better than the rest. Okay, so top insurers and market share here. Interesting to note, there's a bit of an oligopoly situation going on here. You've got 5 of the largest companies, Direct Line, Aviva, Admin, GS and LV, with 57.8% of the market share there. Some very big players in there. Okay. Okay, this just indicates some of the growth in the insurance market. You think it's saturated, but it's still growing. 2008 to 2012, 139 up to 155 providers, 11.5% increase. Now the bottom chart, interestingly, shows the customer satisfaction levels with the providers of insurance. This is from Which. And interestingly enough, the firm I work for myself, Hastings Direct, no surprise to me, only had a customer satisfaction level of 50%. I'm surprised it's that high, quite frankly, but that's another story. Okay, now I'll hand you over to James to talk about consumer behaviour.
Okay, good morning. Right, so throughout this process, we have to put our feet in the shoes of consumers and basically look at what would motivate us or other consumers to buy insurance. Now, the first thing to look at is consumer behaviour. And what is consumer behaviour? Well, how can you analyse consumer behaviour? Well, it's vital for a business, any business, in any sector, in any organisation, to have a thorough understanding of behavioural patterns within consumer behaviour and how consumers behave, because this is the foundation for product development, innovation, pricing and advertising. It intertwines everything within the organisation. And insurance is a fiercely competitive market, therefore it's essential that these behavioural patterns are constantly identified. Right. What we decided to do was look at two theories, two psychologists who have dealt in the field of consumer behaviour and what might motivate these consumers and how companies market themselves to motivate these consumers. The first that we looked at was Sigmund Freud and the second was Abraham Maslow. And it's important to mention here that these theories are in contrast with the classic economic theory, which assumes that the customer or the consumer is rational in thinking. These two theorists actually believed in the unconscious mind and that the behaviour behind consumers was irrational. So it's an important note to make that they both stand on the same level in that perspective. So what motivation can be defined as an inner drive that reflects goal-directed arousal. In a consumer behaviour context, the result of this internal drive is a desire for a product or service such as insurance. Freud believed that the unconscious mind drives our conscious actions and our purchasing of products and services. Psychogenic needs are needs that arise from a psychological state of tension. It's when you get that urge, when you get anxiety, when you feel that you have to act, you need to do something. And this is something that Freud looked at within consumer behaviour and how marketers manipulate this feeling, this urge, to make the consumer act and purchase the product. Now he had three elements of personality within his theory, and this was the id, the ego, and the superego. Now the id is the first of which we are all born with. It's our instinct, a primitive instinct. It's present since birth, and it strives for gratification of all desires. Much like a baby when it wants its food. It doesn't know anything else, but it cries out for that food, it wants its food. The second of which is the ego, which is developed from the id, and this meditates the demands of both the id and the superego that we'll speak about in a moment. The superego controls the impulses of the id, the primitive behaviour, and persuades the ego, the meditator, to turn to unrealistic, moralistic goals. So a bit like a super perfection, which of course is unattainable by any of us. The interesting theory here behind these three elements of personality is that marketeers can look, if they analyse this, and shopper analysis, in fact, we could look at this as shopper analysis to insurers or within their own organisation. But the way insurers can utilise this theory of the id is that we're very, very primitive, and we see this being utilised on a constant basis, even though if we're not consciously aware. And the main way in which they do this is using sex. You'll see it in an advert, you'll see the sex symbol being used on a constant basis. And basically what that's doing is it's drawing on your primitive urges. And they use it in a very, very effective manner. And it's latent motives as such. You're not always aware that what you're acting upon is actually your subconscious. The ego, again, is quite an easy way to... looking at the ego is another quite easy way to manipulate the customer into buying. In this sense, you have to sell it not on a primitive level, but you have to sell your product or service in a way in which they feel good about themselves. Because there's more reason to the ego. They're living in reality, so they're going to question. So they want reason behind buying a product. And if you make a person feel good about themselves, then they're going to want to purchase that product. They'll feel positive in the action. And the same can be applied to the superego. If the ego can persuade the superego part of your personality, it's a rational purchase, then they'll go ahead and make that purchase. So Freud's theory can benefit insurance marketeers by assisting in creating and reinforcing brands that fulfill the needs of these three elements of personality, unconscious and conscious personality. And this can also be used for creative copy, such as text and ways in which, and imagery as well, in which to persuade the consumer. The second of the theorists is a psychologist that we're all aware of, and that's Abraham Maslow. And he created the hierarchy of needs. And as you can see in my diagram here, it's actually a source diagram, it's not my own. We can see that the 5 levels: psychological, safety, belongingness, ego, and self-actualization. Now, if we look here at safety, we can see insurance. This is insurance. And actually, the lower level of the pyramid, it's easier to sell a product because you're working on your basic psychological needs. So, of course, first, you've dealt with your psychological needs, your water, your sleep, your food, you have somewhere to live, you have a car. Safety is insurance. You've purchased a product which is a very valuable product to you, and insurers can advertise their product in a way to draw on your safety aspect. So you've purchased a product of value, and now it's imperative. Look, you bought a product, it's imperative for safety, you insure this product. You'd be stupid, it would be irrational not to. So you're going back to Freud's theory in respect of having to be socially acceptable, what should be done and how it should be done. So it's an easy way to sell products to consumers. I've actually just lost my train of thought, unfortunately. Okay. Right, so this is actually best utilised in helping marketers decide how to target a market depending on what level they are on. So really that's the most beneficial, classifying needs. That's the best way that this model can be utilised within a marketeer's approach. And it's also worth remembering that consumers are always wanting to fill their potential. So as long as you can initiate those drives and motivations within a consumer, they will purchase and they will buy your service or your products. So these are some ideas that Graham can think about for shopper analysis, for his own business, but also in terms of maybe bringing this theory forward and actually just thinking about it a little bit more, because a lot of people don't think about it. We act and we don't think about our subconscious actions, and we don't know what drives us forward. Okay, and I'll just pass you over to Alex.
Yeah, we're just going to cover the recommendations that we think Graham would be wants to follow up. So as you can see, we made up a miniature database, which is where the graph, which is where the children is taken from, of all the insurance companies that we contacted. We contacted 35, and the 18 replied, so that is genuine replies, not even automated responses. We didn't include those. So out of the 35, we've chosen Performance Direct and Rebricks. Performance Direct, they're an SME company, they're only about 150 employees. They cover all terms of personal insurance, so they include motor insurance. And Performance Direct is actually the trading name of Grove and Dean. So, I mean, if you were to look at either Grove and Dean or Performance Direct, you'd find the same company. Reed and Briggs, they've been going since 1959. They also offer commercial insurance. I think they actually specialise in commercial insurance because they, as you can see, offer special schemes and benefits if you go with them, commercial insurance. So again, the possible leads is the contact information for Performance Direct. Darren Atkins is the commercial manager. It's with all the information, which should obviously be more ideal if he was here. Again, the same for Reed Briggs, Mike Thompson, sales director. Reed Briggs are a lot more local than Performance Direct. They're based in Eastbourne and Performance Direct are based in Romford. So although they're a bit far out, there's still quite a potential lead because they are more vexed. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, that will be me then to start with questions, won't it? Okay, you're right. Gemma, I've lost you. Come that way. Thank you. Yeah, that's right. Lost you on screen. It's all right. That's fine. Yeah, that's great. Okay, that was really interesting. Okay, so I'm not totally sure I really understand why you went for this sector. Can you explain, please?
It was a massive sector. We, especially us two, knew a lot about it. I worked in it for 4 years. I saw a lot of different types of customer service. It's not the best sort of thing. And I thought, personally,